set that off. Get my feet under the table. So just...
Very short space time.
Yes.
She was care more, and her husband, 2 more people from No, they just arrived here. It's okay?
I'm chair of the Histon Local Racing Board. So welcome to this second workshop looking at the northern section of Histon Road. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. We're not checking the fire alarm anymore, but know where the fire exits are and the toilet officers out and put the door of the fire alarm. The toilet's through the door on the left there. And be aware that the County Council is filming the event as well. I know we've got various representatives, Resident Association, all sorts here, and there are indications on the table about ways here, but I think we're going to actually kind of amalgamate tables so that we've got a good working number, if you like, on each table. So we'll sort all that out once we've had a couple of presentations. We've got Stuart Warmsley from County Council who's going to give a bit of context again. So it's happening before. We did this 2 weeks ago. A very brief presentation on what text is the deal, and then we've also got blending and subject to being consultant, talk about design plans tonight, and then we'll get a great workshop. And I know everyone is very keen on spending more time and workshops at the table. We didn't have quite enough time we wanted to do 2 weeks ago. Hopefully we're going to have a trick or two, maybe persuade the city deal what we want to do. A treat will be becoming all the trees and more, maybe, along Histon Road. I do have some apologies, because otherwise I'm going to get probably strung up on the nearest lamppost. Just to say that last week I did have apologies from Councillor O'Reilly. She's working away from Cambridge on Mondays and Tuesdays, so she find it very difficult to get to work. I just wanted to point that out. I did have apologies from Councillor Perry and Paul Sales as well. And I think Paul's going to come tonight. If he's not able to make it, I think that'll be probably Councillor Perry. Well, indeed, yes, that's right. There've been a number of emails. I know Lillian has been trying to encourage more attendance from your councillors, your local representatives, which I think is really important. And I should also make you aware that the 2 independent councillors for Castle Ward, John Histon and Louise Holland, they will participate in the local liaison forums, but they're not going to participate in the workshops. Now, if you're a Castle resident, feel free to email them about their position. Although John Histon has made it clear at the local liaison forum that he does not subscribe to the city deal process, and that will be the reason. But feel free to email them if you wish to, but I wanted to pass that on. So those are all the apologies I have from 2 weeks ago and to tonight. So Lillian, I think, has a statement to make, and then we do a first presentation.
I'll be sort of quick. So this is a statement from the Residents Association's representatives, and that is for Histon Road area, and for Benson area residents, and for Windsor Road residents. And we say, in accepting co-option onto the Histon Road Local Liaison Forum, the Histon Road Avenue residents and the Benson Area Residents Association and Windsor Road Residents Association are not to be taken as endorsing the due maximum. Histon Road proposal and its terms, including acceptance of bus lanes at the expense of front yards, trees and verges. The residents associations are willing to participate in the local liaison forum and contribute local knowledge and experience to its workshops on this understanding. Thank you.
Okay, so we get started. Do you want to find a seat to sit on? Yeah. Do you want a table? Yeah. Shall I get going? I'll get through this as quickly as possible.
Could I just refer to that list? Residents Association for that list.
Right, okay. Well, we're going to have... I'll come on to that now. Just quickly, as a brief introduction, as I said, my name is Stuart Watson. I'm the head of major infrastructure delivery. My role is to manage and deliver all of the city deal projects that are currently going. And this is one of them. And normally my colleagues, Ryan and Richard, would be here, but unfortunately they can't be tonight. So they've asked me to step in, so hopefully you'll bear with me. Just so you know, a bit on the format side, on the tables you'll see a number of plans. Hopefully, with the representatives from Skanska that you've got here tonight, just to make sure that everything is there. And equally, they will introduce themselves to you, so you understand who's working with you on the table. What we're doing tonight, this is the second of the design workshops to look at the bus cycling walking trips for Histon Road. You will notice on the top of some of those sheets it does say Milton. Do apologise for that. If you could just ignore the title, because the process below that is exactly the same. It's just the way that that's worked out today. Okay, I will just press on. I should just say we have got some specialists in the audience tonight. But Daniel Downs from the Signals, I don't know if he's here actually. Who is? Right? Yeah. And Matthew McGrath from Trees. Thanks, Matthew. And Claire, I haven't seen Claire actually. She's not here yet. Claire Rankin. Yeah. So I will pick it up. Apologies from Louise Holland, who is my lady. So the two guys that you do have from Signals and Trees will be here to answer questions if you do have any specifics in relation to the scheme. Right, I'll just give you a quick zip through again. I think looking at some of the faces here, I recognise some of you, so you've probably seen a lot of this before, so I'm not going to dwell too much. I think we're pretty much sure that why we're here, what we're doing, what City Deal represents, and just the scale of the task that faces us given the sort of numbers of new homes and new job targets that are being set for us to deliver. So this is one scheme of many that represents our interpretation of how we can deliver against those objectives. As you can see there, well, it says it all, doesn't it? That there's potential for a large amount of growth on our doorstep, and we're looking to sort of find ways in which we can mitigate that and introduce sustainable means of travel in order to get people from home to work in a much more sort of seamless way. And this is, again, what we're trying to achieve with the scheme now. Again, some more figures for you to look at. Projected figures for 2031. As you can see, that's a considerable increase that we have to consider when it comes to doing the type of works that we're looking to propose. And again, you've got some more target figures there, increasing journey time, and as you can see, the Milton Road, Histon Road corridors. We're expecting increase in journey times of those orders. That is, in my experience, before working in Cambridge, I did work in London, and those are the sorts of figures that are significant. So do nothing is not really an option for us at the moment. So we have to recognise that this is on our doorstep, and we have to think about ways in which we can introduce some sensible means of travel for those that wish to use it. And so what are we looking at? Privatised. City Deal, importantly, is all about means of sustainable transport. This is not about building new roads. This is all about using the roads that we have, or using the routes that we have to create sustainable means of travel. And it's a very important distinction to make from those of my colleagues in Highways England. And this does give us a real opportunity, I do say that, because I do talk a lot at the board on this, in that the types of measures here today are fairly are important, and they do represent a significant change in the way that we manage the network. So what are we looking at? Well, the Histon Road itself is the main objectives. We're looking for priority for buses. We are to increase the patronage levels to get along this route. That is a key function of this particular scheme. What does that mean? Well, it means that we have to do a number of things to ensure that that works effectively and makes that journey attractive enough to build in the factors that we want. So that does mean that we will need to look at this corridor, and we will need to think about ways of doing that. And hence this workshop tonight is an opportunity for you to contribute towards that design. So what you say tonight will be very useful and will help us when it comes to redefining the scheme. These are the resolutions from the board that sat in June. I think the important thing is to look at the local liaison forum and how this workshop and how this group will feed into that process. Before we go back to the board with our new proposals, we need to build in all the aspects that we gather from these workshops this evening and as we go forward as well. So the whole process that we've introduced is, in essence, we're now going back, we're looking at it, we're giving you the opportunity to contribute towards it, which will mean that by the time we do go back with a suggested option, we will consider all of the consultation that we've taken. And so, purpose of the workshop, well, I think I've covered most of it. We're looking at landscaping, trees, the impact on, importantly tonight as well, crucially what we're looking for is the decisions and the requirements that we're making on the junctions and how those are going to work at the road in Hedges. So your thoughts on those, very much appreciated. And we need to then reflect on the executive board resolution going forward on what we're proposing. So tonight we tabled a number of plans. I think those, I do, as I say, recognise some faces, so you've been here before, so you should be quite familiar now with the way that these plans are operating and how much you can contribute by putting down information related to it. So that's an important part of the process, and that's the bit that we gather at the end of the day. We'll collect all this information and we will then put it into a revised proposal design that we're looking to do following the completion of these workshops. So we've got Milton Road complete, Histon Road is now running in in the sequence. So by the time we are, in December, we should start to get some real information on exactly how these projects are going to look and what the proposals are and what the input is from these workshops. Just so you can see the agenda for this evening, so we've got representatives from WSP. WSP are the appointed consultants working for us in formulating design, and they bring with them a considerable amount of experience working around the country and abroad in bringing together ideas. So I think we're rather fortunate to have some of the people here tonight with some explanations on what this process will be. So who will run through the initial stage of the design, and we will use these sessions. I'm keen for us to get quickly into the desktop exercises so that we can start to move it through. We'll have a break. I suppose we've got some coffee, we've got some facilities here for those that need it. So, my experience is one I've been to before. The break's available, but we tend to carry on working. Just take a break from the table, get a drink, and come back and carry on so that we get this. And there'll be an opportunity to offer up discussions, and we have a camera this evening for those that stand at the front and are not opposed to us filming. We will continue to film so we can capture the feedback from the tables and make those as a record of the event as well. Okay, I will hand over to Glenn, and he'll take us through the first session. Yes.
Is there any blank paper available with notes?
I don't know, actually. On the tables, you've got, there's a lot of paper on there. Yes. Okay, great. Excellent.
Good evening. So my name is Gilbert, design from WSP. So I've got a few slides that just summarise what the current design shows and introduces the cross sections. Really, I've condensed the presentation to give more time to do.
That sounds of Gilbert Road, not north of Gilbert Road. That picture's already misleading.
It's a misleading.
Not ready.
Can we start choosing pictures where vehicles aren't illegally parked?
Well,
It's contravening the 1875 Act, section 91, section part C.
Okay.
Right.
So the presentation is condensed a bit. So I've cut out some of the generic stuff at the end about types of cycle lanes, etc. So to give more time to do the work around the So we are covering the north section of Gilbert Hedges. Here's the key principles, same as last time, which Stuart ran through just then. So here's a couple of slides just to pick out some of the key features, an introduction of the current design. So working north from Gilbert Road, so Gilbert Road's signalised junction still is. There are advanced stop lines for cyclists on all arms, similar to what there is at the moment, but also approach lanes. The curb radius at the junction are tightened a bit, just to do many things, but including slowing traffic down. There's a bus lane so this is going north, so that's a southbound bus lane on the approach to Gilbert Road there. Raised cycleways in either direction, at this point about 1.5 metres wide. And then, appreciate there's a lot on one slide here, but hopefully it's here. This is from consultation. So these three red lines there are where the cross sections are taken from.
Thanks. Can I ask a question, please? Why are your plan going to line north to south?
Because there'd be a lot of drawings. This is how it's presented for
What I see
consultation.
there is not viewable. You have to look at my plan here, but
Yeah.
it's just not
Okay.
conventional.
Okay. Fair
It's
enough.
just, to me, it's difficult to visualise. I'm a professional engineer,
Yeah.
and I know roads, Histon Road runs north to south.
Okay.
You're presenting diagrams which are running east-west,
Yes.
and it does not represent.
Okay. All right. Well, point noted. Thanks for that. We are where we are here today, so that's all we've got. We haven't got any other drawings. So hopefully...
It's ridiculous then.
Well, you've got a north point there in the bottom right-hand corner.
The one at the north point.
Yeah, which tells you that you are looking in a northerly direction. There's a north point, if you can see.
Gilbert Road,
All North Point.
junction, working north,
Yeah.
working north, King's Hedges. So that's the way it runs. So, some key features here, raised entries at all the side roads. Raised cycleway continues till about 1.5 metres wide at this point. There's a new pedestrian crossing just there, a little way north of Gilbert Close. Bus stops, and this is a common feature for all of them, where it's currently shown as being a shared use area, where pedestrians and cyclists use the same space. The bus stops, side road junctions, crossing locations, will all be subject to the more detailed stuff that is proposed for the next workshop, just to say that. So moving north, so we've got raised cycleways, they widen out a bit at this point, it's 2 metres. This is currently shown as the land to achieve the cross-section with 2 lanes, a bus lane, cycle lanes and footways. There is a footway, continuous footway on the side of the road. This is the area, part of the area where you would need to acquire a bit of land from gardens.
Why?
It's not a bit of land,
Why?
it's a considerable amount.
Why do we need to acquire the land? Give me a good reason.
Well, I've just said to achieve the 2 carriageways, a lane in each direction, a bus lane.
Why can't we fit everything in the existing footprint of the road?
The reason, because going back to the objectives, the original principles, so we're trying to work, the principle of being here today is working to the objectives of the city deal, which is a north and southbound lane for normal traffic, a bus lane in one direction only at any one point, some form of cycle lane provision and provision for pedestrians.
Okay, let's go a step back. Why do we need bus lane? And Campbell of City Bus says it doesn't need bus lane in
the premise why we are here today is to work with what we have and try and make best use of the time. There's the time we've got. This is the forum.
If the customer doesn't need bus lane, the customer of the City Bus, then why waste our taxpayers' money putting one in?
I think we will get more value, I don't know what other people think, out of the session, which is what it's designed for, to try and get your thoughts on how the current designs could be redesigned in the best way.
You're happy with 1.5 lane to the left. Why don't you save some land from the house owners by not making the pathway so wide and the cycle lane so wide? If you're happy with the 1.5 meters at Gilbert Road, why is it so important that it be 2 meters where you're going to steal land?
We could potentially...
1.5 meters at that point with car traffic next to them. It's effective width of half a metre, which is not even DMP. Okay, that's a different issue. But
Sorry, we could potentially talk for quite a long time about the fundamental principles.
Well, there is a fundamental
But what we won't have,
At the beginning of this talk, we were told, not yours, your predecessor, that walking was prioritised, then cycling, then public transport. You kick off with the most important thing is a bus lane.
All of them are
Where's the
prioritised.
consistency?
Isn't there a basic flaw at the moment? Councillor Herbert has just said publicly that he thinks that the closures, the traffic closures, will not actually work, which is fundamental to the whole design of the city deal. As Margaret Reynolds has written for all of this, she has information, and I think most of us do, that the university is planning to start an underground system, and basically that's the first step in a light rail system. Now, if the very fundamentals of the whole city deal plan that you're talking about are being knocked out from under your feet, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Yes. How about let's do maximum, let's do the right thing, because this isn't the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there are alternatives like congestion charging, which the county council was very keen on 10 years ago, but for some reason has gotten cold teeth.
I think that there are
There are alternatives.
there are alternatives. You're absolutely right. But I think tonight
We were told last time that you wanted alternatives.
from this workshop.
Right. Yes. I mean, ideas. You know, that's the whole purpose of putting together tonight. This is not about constraining yourselves to what's on there, but an opportunity for you to say what you think is a solution. But I think it's important to understand. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think if there's widespread opposition to the bus lanes, to cutting down the trees, and the premise on which all of this is built, for the whole city deal, is that closure, you know, the stopping points around
Sorry, you were talking about the peak time control closure points.
Control, which leads into all of this. If that's going, or is seriously being questioned because of the opposition, and if there's the possibility of starting a light rail system and then coordinating whatever buses are to the light rail, then the entire thing has to be redesigned.
Yeah.
And so cutting down a bunch of trees that have, you know, grown for hundreds of years or, you know, or less, and that are irreplaceable on that level, where you've got widespread opposition, where, as this gentleman said, there's, you know, not very much support from, in fact, from the bus company, and we're talking about saving 3 or 4 minutes on a bus trip at all of this expense. And we know that the local MPs are all talking about trying to get the money, which is the deadline on this, extended. That the South Cambs Tory MP has spoken to the Transport Minister, who has told her that it's possible to extend the deadline, which is what this rush is about. We've got to spend the money quickly.
Sorry, I hear what you say, and it's a valid point, it really is, real problem. But these are projects that have been identified, they've been prioritised at the beginning of the process for us to engage and to look and see what we can do. We don't know for sure what's coming down the line. We've heard all what you said. Rapid transit systems can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. What we're dealing with here is an objective approach to increase the patronage and the passenger and the bus routes through this corridor. We're talking, I mean, at the beginning, sorry, if I can just finish, because if you can remember from the beginning slide, you know, we've got an enormous amount of development facing us on the perimeters of Cambridge, and we do need to do something. This is an opportunity
we need to do the right thing.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
what you're proposing is the wrong thing.
Well, we're suggesting that these are the options that we've come up with. This is what gives us the type of journey reliability that we're looking for. I hear what you say about the bus operators, because we're working with them on all of our radial routes. So clearly there's some more discussions to have on that. But this is one of the major projects that we are promoting, and this is an opportunity tonight for you to engage in that. So I hear what you say, and I know what you are, but
Money.
well, okay.
Criminal waste of money.
Well, I understand exactly what you're saying, but they have been prioritised.
You don't sound like you do.
Well, I'm sorry, but I do.
I'm sorry.
May I ask you a question?
A bus.
How many buses an hour run down Histon Road, please?
I haven't got the figures in front of me at the
I
moment.
can tell you.
Yeah.
See, I've done my homework.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm telling you 7 buses an hour run down Histon Road.
Yep.
Right, tell me how many of those buses an hour actually stop in Histon Road.
Well, but we're talking about a project here
No, I'm
that will
telling you,
increase.
I want answers to my questions, please.
Yeah.
Right, I just told you there's only 7 buses an hour run down this proposed bus lane of yours.
Yeah.
So it's a complete waste of space and time.
But we're building
3 of
some.
those buses stop, which would be a service. And I use the bus.
Yeah.
I had to use the bus to go to Edinburgh to speak. Unfortunately, I couldn't use the 8, which stops because it doesn't go to Edinburgh anymore. I had to go to Carlton Way to get to number 1. But only 3 buses out of them 7 stop. The rest are the B bus, guided bus. So that's not an improvement for me.
No, but this does represent an opportunity. And don't forget, these are strategic links, and we're looking to build
so if
in
there's only 7
facility.
buses,
Well,
usually why have bus lane?
well, as you say, at the moment there are only 7, but the potential is with the new development.
Andy Campbell has stated that he does not see a need to increase the frequency of the City 8 bus.
Yeah, well, okay, because I mean that's
So
the commercial decision they make. But absolutely, but
And he stated he doesn't need a bus lane.
If you can't guarantee that any
Yeah.
buses will run on this route, then that's a critical thing. You must give us evidence
But-
that the people who build the bus lane can get buses running on it that serve the people.
well, in my experience, and I can't speak for Andy because he's not here, and I haven't spoken to him about that particular aspect. Is that if you create the right environment, if you create the right reliability, it will attract the commercial interest of these operators.
Can I ask why there's no bus lanes on Hills Road, which has just been, had these fantastic photo bus stops, and Huntington Road?
Yeah.
There's no bus lanes on those roads.
I
So
think
why do we need one? We're a smaller, narrow road, we're a big road.
yeah, well, I think you've just answered it really, because we've got a lot of constraining points along this route that do slow down the routes, do slow down the bus operators.
This is not going to solve
constraining
that.
point isn't on
It's
Histon Road.
that
It's
junction at
Well,
Gilbert Road. You
can
can't
I-
possibly
I'm
do
sorry.
anything beyond that junction.
Okay, I mean,
When you
I'm
say-
conscious of the time, and
When
I'm
you
conscious
say
of...
that if you provide the facilities, people use them, all the statistics that I've seen worldwide, and particularly all of Europe, says that people prefer trams and light rails, and they use them. And there's example after example after example where buses are not used and trams are used. You put a tram in, and from one day to the next, the car traffic drops. If we're talking about building up a light rail system, then this becomes redundant. And we have to look at the whole overall plan, and there's been a lot of work done, by Smarter Cambridge Transport and by the people looking at light rail, which would say that this is probably quite silly.
Well, okay, it's an opinion you have. I take
I
your
would
point.
question the occupancy. I'd like to know what the occupancy is of the buses at the moment. I know that the occupancy is high during the rush hour, but the rest of the day, what's the occupancy of these buses that are actually coming through?
And they won't use the bus lane outside the rush hour, there's no need to.
No, I mean, I drive in every day at all sorts of different times to work.
Right.
I can only identify a short window when there is congestion, if there is congestion, and it's only usually during term time. The problem could be solved by preventing people unloading during the rush hour, by stopping people parking illegally, and actually by doing something very, very sensible, which is to encourage a car share scheme, by which I don't mean people sharing cars, they should be doing that anyway, but a scheme where you can hire a car and go into town into something small. Because the way you increase road space is by decreasing car space.
Okay.
And I speak as a car driver